There is this really beautiful skin at the end of the movie Cloud Atlas, and it's called Sonmi's Revelation. And well, the movie has a lot of symbolic texture and meaning and depth in it in regards to karma, interconnectedness, and the predatory nature of human beings, and how it is possible to transform that into genuine heroism. So I just thought that it's a great example of something really profound. So I'll just read it, a little passage from that scene. So she's being interviewed by this archiver, and she says, truth is singular. Its versions are mistruths. To be is to be perceived. And so to know thyself is only possible through the eyes of the other. The nature of our immortal lives is in the consequences of our words and deeds that go on apportionating themselves throughout all time. Our lives are not our own. From womb to tomb, we are bound to others, past and present. And by each crime and every kindness, we birth our future. That's the passage. So it starts that the truth is singular. Its versions are mistruths. So that's the absolute truth. That's the uh, unmanipulated reality, or the unfabricated reality. And then at the level of relative truth, yeah, to be is to be perceived. So it's constant interaction. So our relative experience can only exist in interaction. So to know yourself is only possible through the eyes of the others in that sense, because we don't really exist as an independent individual like the Western mind often likes to think. So at the absolute level, yeah, what you are cannot be seen ever, not by you or not by anyone else. And it doesn't have a need to be seen. But at the relative level, we often only through interaction can come to learn ourselves. Our shadow can come to light. We can see places in ourselves that we wouldn't see if we would just remain in a cave. That's a classical example, but it's very true that if we would just isolate ourselves in the awakening process, and even if we would manage to, um, transcend the human condition, it's not really liberation, not in the way at least I understand that term. So it just seems to be coded in the pattern that even if you would manage to transcend the human condition, the samsaric madness, it just requires that kind of depth and heart opening that when it does happen, the compassion pulls you back in to samsara. So it's this illusion of liberation as an individual experience, something for you. It's just illusion. So liberation only exists in connection with this experience of interconnectedness. Like it's not for you, because it requires the sacrifice of you. And that's also beautifully expressed in that movie Cloud Atlas in the end scene. So Zanmi is giving that declarations, that speech. Even she knows she's going to be executed, and she's being asked, like, why are you doing this? Why do you sacrifice your life? And she says that if I would have remained invisible, the truth would have remained hidden, and I could not allow that. So she chooses to speak the truth instead of being governed by self-preservation. So that's another very profound symbolism in the awakening process, or referring to the awakening process. This capacity in us that is choosing truth over self-preservation. It's a willing sacrifice. So this is what no self-realization is about. So it's not about awakening in a sense of insight. Of course, that's super essential, and the insight work is very much part of the awakening process, and it's never ending in a certain sense. I mean, the refinement, at least, there's a certain completion when the insight is super clear and integrated and yes, spontaneously expressing itself moment by moment. But there is this aspect of sacrifice to no self, which is why it's not really possible to comprehend by the ego or by the self, because it's outside its paradigm of functioning and mechanics. This capacity in us that is able to sacrifice and that is at the same time able to fully claim our autonomy, because that's also part of that scene in Cloud Atlas. What's happening to that main character is that through her development, her character development, she comes to reclaim her autonomy, like self-determination, after being part of a system that is predatory, where she's exploited. So she goes through this process of transformation, of individuation, I guess we could say. And that's also super important in connection with no self-realization. So it doesn't mean that we become passive or that we don't have will to act in the world when that's necessary. Yeah, that will is not personal will. It's not will in any conventional sense. Maybe another word for it could be decisiveness, because there is this total lack of investment, this total, we could say, like lack of interest even. Like the action is just happening. It's not driven by personal agenda or self-preservation instinct or this hunger that is governing, the human behavior, what I want, what I need, and so on. So it is possible to move in the world from a different place, from a completely different place. like it's like not being part of that paradigm anymore, and that the action it's coming in a efficient way from a very different place, not driven by any kind of agenda, not driven by any kind of premeditation. So it's action that is identical with intention. And that's beyond ego's capacity to comprehend. Like that's what the predatory mindset is kind of based on, that everyone will fight for their survival and prioritize their own self-interest above everything else. Like if you're really, really pushed to the corner, that's what the ego is always kind of counting on. That's how people are, and maybe that's how people are. But going through this process of no self-realization, there's something that happens to the survival instinct, to the self-preservation instinct, because it's a conditioning, it's a biological conditioning, but it's also a social, cultural conditioning. And as a result, we prioritize truth, and it's not a choice. We devote our life to truth at all costs. And at the same time, there is this carefree ease, this absence of purpose, fundamentally speaking, this absence of drive. Like seeing that reality is already spontaneously self-perfecting, constantly, moment by moment. So nothing needs to be done, to save the world or make the world a better place. So I think that's also important to emphasize, because otherwise this whole thing can become a bit too serious. Like, yeah, it is serious, but it's another paradox that it can be serious and utterly carefree at the same time. Serious in a sense that there's a sense of responsibility that comes with realization. It just comes with it, not in a human sense, but when you leave the interconnected nature of all arising, yeah, it comes with implications that are natural. Like compassion becomes just a natural reflex within the field. But at the same time, you see that it's empty. Reality is empty. And it's utterly inconceivable. So our responsiveness moment by moment is not determined by any fixed sets of rules, how things are. It's coming from this place of not knowing. Let me still read a few more words from, yeah, this scene, Somnis Revelation. So yesterday, my life was headed in one direction. Today is headed in another. Yesterday, I believed that I would have never have done what I did today. These forces that often remake time and space, that can shape and alter who we imagine ourselves to be, begin long before we are born and continue after we perish. our lives and our choices, like quantum trajectories, are understood moment to moment. At each point of intersection, each encounter suggests a new potential direction.